You're watching CN2 News. Two Chester County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's Raelle Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, Raelle Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more about Create and Educate LLC, simply follow them on Facebook or at their website at createandeducate.com.
Create and Educate held their first personal event after a year of completely virtual events. The organization started during the pandemic, and their goal was to create a way to educate students, teachers, and families virtually. During their Lunch and Learn event, teachers, university experts, leaders, and educators speaking about ways to prepare students since the pandemic.
It has been very difficult. Some teachers have decided to leave the profession as well as leaders. So we know that education is something that all of our children need. We want to be able to build resilience in our leaders and our teachers so that our education system will be resilient as well.
We needed to provide the space for some dialogue on how we move forward from here and how we can shift where we are in education so that as we move forward, we're moving forward and we are not just trying to do school as usual, but truly looking for some new and innovative ideas for what's going to take us to that next level.
Create and Educate also celebrating its 1-year anniversary.
Hi, Tammy. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Sheka. Good evening, everybody. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Welcome to our Women's History edition of the Collaborative. We are so excited to be with you on this first day of March that brings in Women's History Month. And Sheka and I thought it would be very fitting for us to celebrate all of the amazing women in our lives this evening and the contributions they have made to us and our upbringing. So we cannot do this without honoring both our mothers, mothers-in-law, grandmothers, aunts, and other family members who have helped us to become the women that we are today. So we want to just say thank you to those extraordinary ladies. And we also want to honor the many, many, many other amazingly phenomenal women who have made significant contributions throughout society. So thank you again for joining us, and happy Women's History Month to all the women out there. And we just celebrate you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. And we want to just remind everybody as well of our new format. Tonight, of course, is the first Tuesday. So we're with you and we're on live. But each Tuesday following until the first Tuesday in April, we will be directing folks to our partners in literacy who provide those literacy nights, like she could give what's our we always call her the unicorn teacher, but it's reading with
Miss McGriff,
Miss McGriff, and reading with Miss Pat.
Mhm.
We have so many different outlets where we would recommend you guys just to join in on those reading sessions so that your children are able to share in that story time that we have been talking with you guys about since we started the collaborative, because we believe in the power of literacy and what that means to helping to get our kids ready and reading.
Most definitely, Tammy. And just to feed off of what you have said, we are definitely thankful for all the women who have made it possible for you all to even be able to hear our voices today. So we could not think of a better way, like I said in the post, to bring in Women's History Month than our featured guest today. And we are so excited. We're going to introduce her in just a moment. But remember, the collaborative is something that Tammy and I started at the beginning of the pandemic to bring educators, parents, community members, and authors together. We want to solve problems in education, and it's important for everyone, all stakeholders, to be involved in that process. So if you are an educator, a parent, or a community member, an author, tell us where you're from, share this on your feed. Don't keep us all to yourselves. And one thing that does help us get the word out, Facebook has their own algorithm. So when you share and like the feed, that helps us to get the word out. So please make sure you're doing that. And we are definitely wanting to bring everyone together to form alliances and also solve problems around real topics. So as you all know, we are an educational show. So we always start with on this day in history. And on March the 1st, the Supreme Court of California began allowing Black students to enroll in public schools in 1890. Thanks to one father's fight, an African American in California, they were able to enroll in all public schools as of March 1st, 1890. So we are very thankful for that very important fact.
Yes, and tonight, as Sheka said, we have a very, very incredible guest who will be joining us. And she too is an extraordinary woman and has many, many, many contributions made to our background with education as well as in the field of literature. She's an author, just such an accomplished individual. And we're so, so excited to have her with us this evening. So I don't know, some of you guys might know this, but I am currently dissertating. Now, I know that sounds like a really bad something that I have going on, but it's really not, because I'm so excited about my research and have already learned so many things, because the central focus of my work is about Black women. I can find relevance in everything that I'm doing My work, though, has led me down some very interesting paths and put me in the company of many, many significant scholars in the field. One of those scholars is Dr. Clenora Hudson-Weems. My theoretical framework for my study is Africana Womanism. And I am so excited to say that Dr. Hudson-Weems is actually the person who has defined that paradigm. She's an academician and a legend who has more academic accomplishments than we could have time to talk with you guys about tonight. We would like to share her bio with you, though, so that everybody knows how amazing our guest this evening is. So we want to say welcome to you, Dr. Hudson-Weems, and we're going to share your bio. Dr. Clenora Hudson-Weems is the 21-22 Ida Beam Distinguished Visiting Professor, the University of Iowa, African American Studies. She's a professor at the University of Missouri in Columbia in the Department of English, a distinguished author, theorist, film writer, public intellectual who received her PhD from the University of Iowa. She received her master's from Clark Atlanta University and her bachelor's from Lamont Owen College. She also holds a certificate of French studies from the University Dijon in France. She is the author of Africana Womanism, Reclaiming Ourselves, 5th edition, a 2019-2020 publication of the 1993 classic text with 5 new chapters, part 3. She also authored Africana Womanist Theory, Literary Theory, 2004, Africana Womanism and Race and Gender in the Presidential Candidacy of Barack Obama, 2008, Emmett Till, The Sacrificial Lamb of the Civil Rights Movement, the 1994 dissertation turned book. Dr. Hudson-Weems was the first to establish Till as the catalyst of the movement with her 1988 Ford doctoral dissertation, Emmett Lewis Till, The Impetus of the Modern Civil Rights Movement. University of Iowa was where that work was completed. The definitive Emmett Till and Passion and Battle of a Woman for Truth and Intellectual Justice, 2006. Plagiarism, Physical and Intellectual Lynching, an Emmett Till Continuum in 2007. Emmett, Legacy, Redemption, and Forgiveness, 2014. She is co-author with Wilfred Samuels of Toni Morrison, Prentice Hill, 1990, the first critical study of the works of the Nobel laureate and Amiri Baraka, and the Black Arts Movement with Lorenzo Thomas. She's the editor of Africana Paradigms, Practices, and Literary Texts, Evoking Social Justice, and many, many, many more. We are so excited because in her 1995, she was interviewed by the American Audio Prose Library on her Till and Africana Womanism books. Published in referee journals, she also has articles in Call and Response, the Riverside Anthology of the African American Literary Tradition, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, and has a number of book chapters. She is the recipient of numerous honors and awards, including Ford Foundation, NEH, and NEA. We want to welcome you again, Dr. Hudson. We are so thankful to have you join us this evening and so excited to have you as an honoree in Women's History edition of the Collaborative. We're humbled to have you with us tonight.
Thank you so much. And just listening to that, I just kept hearing male, female, female, male. That's my whole thing, is both sides of the human coin. And I try to make a balance there. If I'm going to do Africana Womanism, the conceptualizer of that concept, then I need to do something significant for the Africana male. And let me just say that both Africana Womanism and Emmett Till as catalysts were both birthed at my alma mater, University of Iowa, the first semester of my going there in the fall of 1985. So you see both sides of the coin working together. That's the way we do it.
That is awesome. And as Tammy stated, we are just really honored to have you with us. And as you can imagine, I do everything I can to support Tammy and her work. So I've been able to familiarize myself with Africana Womanism and the many amazing things that you've done to bring that construct to the forefront as not just a theoretical construct, but as a way to unite Africana families and strengthen our community. So that was one of the things that I loved about it. Like you said, it brings the male and female together to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I love the whole framework, but I really, really love how everything centers around the family and bringing men, women, and children together to, as Sheka said, strengthen our communities. It's really all about inclusiveness, and we truly think that that's amazing. So we know that two very important elements of Africana Womanism are self-naming and self-defining.
Exactly.
Can you tell us why you feel like those two are so important to the work?
Well, I think that the narrative starts with a terminology that you can attach yourself to, and then following that's naming. In African cosmology, it's called nomo, which is the proper naming of a thing that brings it into existence. You know, the Bible says, speak something into existence. I'm speaking these things into existence, okay? All these positive things about the Africana community as it interacts and exists within the larger frame of our world, the global Africana, as well as people in general. So what I want to do is to make sure that I name myself properly, because if I don't do that, people will assume that whatever name I piggyback off of, I'm part of that too. And so that was what I tried to tell my colleagues when I first came out with this concept back in at a conference back in 1986. I'm sorry, the second semester of my first year at Iowa. And I told them we're in Boston that we have to start off by naming ourselves. Then, of course, we put all the elements that we want to specify, to identify those things that are important for us. In the process of naming, we've got to define. So it's self-naming and self-defining. Toni Morrison does an excellent job. You know, I mean, why shouldn't I think about Toni Morrison? I co-authored with my very good friend, Dr. Samuels at the University of Utah, the first full-length study of Toni Morrison's novels. I mean, here's a prize-winning author, she's a Nobel laureate, all that. And she says, in my favorite novel that came out in 1980, was it 87, 86, 87? I was actually at the University of Iowa at the time and was asked to do a review for some publication of Morrison. Oops, I think we've lost something.
No, we can
we're here. We hear you
and see you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you there?
We're here.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I don't see you. Oh, now. Wow, good. Well, that's the computer. Everybody's pulling on computers now. Thank God for it. We can't complain, can we? At least we all can communicate. But at any rate, the Morrison says in the novel that I feel that was it. Morrison never outdid herself. She never did anything beyond that one. I mean, she did a great volume of stuff, but in reference to outdoing that one, no. Beloved was it. And I was so happy that God fixed it where we weren't able to finish the book in time before the editor for that volume had to leave for a year, and he went to Europe. I think he was in England. And I was busy also, working with Emmett Till, trying to develop that as the true catalyst of the civil rights movement. And so, we interviewed Toni Morrison, spent a whole day in her home, and we ended up from 8, and I guess it was about 10 that morning to about 7 or 8 that night, culminating in a nice dinner at one of her favorite places in just north of New York City, on the Hudson Rivers where she lived. But at any rate, I just wanted to make sure that I had it all together Morrison, she says, definitions in that, beloved, belonged to the definers, not the defined. This is during slavery. We were the defined. We were defined by the other, the dominant culture. That was centuries ago, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it was less than that. It hasn't been 2 centuries yet, has it? No. But the bottom line is, it's been a long time, okay? And so I'm happy to say that it's past time for us to name and define ourselves, independent of any other names out there. People go, oh, when you say this, you mean that, you mean that. I see, all that qualifying, clarifying, all that fine, something's fishy going on. If you want a new name, then you come up with if you want a new concept, then you got to give it a new name. And nothing else will be attached to it other than what you've already put there as a part of it. You know what I mean? So that's why self-naming and self-defining is so critical. And nobody gets it mixed up. Okay? That's the way I feel about it. And of course, the other 18 characteristics of the 18, the 16 left, they are just as important. It doesn't mean it's the most important. It means that certainly you need to do that first. This is the whole notion of prioritizing. I have no problems prioritizing. I don't think any of us, we just don't call it prioritizing. We wake up in the morning, we don't jump up and eyes open, jump everything at the same time. We do first thing first. We look around, then we open eyes and look around and rise up. And it's just one thing at a time. We can't do simultaneity thing. That doesn't happen. I'm not good at juggling. I think most of us aren't. So we do first thing first, which is another part of Africana Womanism, is the prioritization of race, class, and gender, as opposed to simultaneity or as opposed to any other nuances that you want to put to that. It's the first thing first. You see race first, deal with that. Then there's a class, almost tit for tat, right there behind, on the heels of, right? And then the last, not that it's insignificant, is the gender factor. There it goes.
And I love it. Sheka and I have talked about it a lot of times, how you answer to what you want to be called. Like, I don't have to answer to anything other than what I want to be called.
Exactly. And if you're just joining us, I pulled this from the book. Africana Womanism is a theory that outlines the experience of Africana women as a unique and separate one from other women of color and white women. And as you stated, it definitely shows how race, class, and gender must be prioritized in the fight against everyday racial dominance. So as a Black woman of African descent, I'm very intrigued by how Africana Womanism is so representative of who we are as Black women. And I'm sure you know that Tammy recently wrote a blog post that featured your work for NWEA.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it was a phenomenal article. She wrote about strengthening the sisterhood amongst Black women principles.
Very important.
It is. Can you talk a little bit about the genuine in sisterhood aspect of Africana Womanism and why that is so critical to us as women, all women, but especially for us as Black women?
Actually, like you said, it's always been there. Sisterhood is very important. I think that we have elements that seem to point at the fact that we don't value that sisterhood the way we once did, which means we need to be trying to get back there because it's so important. Sisters support each other. That's what they do. Genuine sisterhood it has nothing to do with sexuality, your choice, or anything of that nature. It is simply an asexual relationship between women, where I got your back, boo. You're mine, you're my sister. I mean, maybe not blood sisters, but what difference does it make? We're in it together. That's the thing. And I've always valued sisterhood. I mean, first of all, you get support from each other. Maybe you can't pick up your kids if you have kids, and your sister say, no worries, I got it. They pick the kids up, and then it might be a circumstance where you just need to talk to someone. You're having some problems, financial or emotional problems with your significant other, for example. And you talk to a sister, boy, You know, she's like, she's more into it than you. She's crying hard or harder than you sometimes. And then what happened? Okay, then what are we going to do now? I think we should do this just like that. That's sisterhood, you know? And Morrison is kind of like alluding to the significance of sisterhood in the speech that she presented at Barnard College in the 80s called the Cinderella Stepsisters. And if you don't mind, it takes a minute, but I think it's coming from a Nobel laureate. Okay. I think we got time to listen to her.
We do.
But I have to read it because
I love it.
I love it. You know, this was the commencement address at Barnard College. Okay. She said, I am alarmed by the violence that women do to each other. Professional violence, competitive violence, emotional violence. I am alarmed by the willingness of women to enslave other women. I am alarmed by a growing absence of decency on the killing floor of professional women's world. Very powerful. She says, I want not to ask you, but to tell you not to participate in the oppression of your sisters. Mothers who abuse their children are women, and another woman, not an agency, has to be willing to stay their hands. Mothers who set fire to school buses are women, and another woman, not an agency, has to tell them to stay their hands. Women who stop the promotion of other women in careers are women, and another woman must come to the victim's aid. Social and welfare workers who humiliate their clients may be women, and other women colleagues have to deflect their anger. She goes on to say, I am suggesting that we pay as much attention to our nurturing sensibilities as to our ambition. We are moving in the direction of freedom, and the function of freedom is to free somebody else. Is that magic?
It is.
You are moving towards self-fulfillment, and the consequences of that fulfillment should be to discover that there is something just as important as you are, and that just as important thing may be Cinderella or your stepsisters. And she closes beautifully. In your rainbow journey toward the realization of personal goals, don't make choices based only on your security and your safety. Nothing is safe. But in pursuing your highest ambition, don't let your personal safety diminish the safety of your stepsister. In wielding the power that is deservedly yours, don't permit it to enslave your stepsisters. Let your might and your power emanate from that place in you that is nurturing and caring. I love that.
I love that too.
That's something that we should. I mean, we should read it all the time. You know what I mean? just to hear it. I mean, she's telling you to be a sister and to be a genuine sisterhood genuine sister who loves your sister. See, a sister will risk, quite frankly, your relationship if it means that she's going to say something you don't like, and you might say, "Hey, I don't want any more parts of you." You love her enough to give up a relationship to save her. I don't think you need to stay in that relationship. It's not a good one. These are my observations. Not selfish, but these are my observations because of this, that, and the other. Maybe you should look someplace else, and I think you deserve more. And maybe your sister will love you for it, and maybe your sister will be angry with you. You know, that's a chance you take. But you love her enough to risk the relationship. That's important. That's a sister.
It is. I love that. Also, it reminds me of, I think, what Tammy put in the article too about, learning to lift as we climb. We've met so many phenomenal women like yourself that are willing to do that because we have experienced some of that professional violence where, your voice is silenced or, you're put in compromising positions. So that is so important. And another one of my sorority sisters, she posted once, you can't compete with me because I want us all to win. If we all just had that attitude as women, so many more of us would flourish. So I love that.
That's true. We have to feel that way. We have to love. And love is the key. I mean, everything, God has given us that thing. that thing called love. And if we
Right.
use that love in our everyday lives, we wouldn't have any problems. We wouldn't be talking about anything because we'd be looking out for each other all the time, as well we should.
That's true.
Yes, and it's very refreshing to hear, like Sheka said, and see women who don't mind investing in you
Mhm.
professionally, emotionally, whatever it takes to
Mhm.
help you to get to that next level. And there are so many of those women whose paths we've been able to cross and whose lives are now intertwined with ours, so that as we are able to do things, we can stand on the shoulders of those women that have come before us. And
Absolutely.
it's just it's an incredible feeling, though, to know that you are someone who can be genuine in the sisterhood. There isn't anything that I wouldn't do to help Sheka to get where she needs to go or to be what she needs to be. I don't mind taking off to go pick up girls if I need to get the girls or
Right.
whatever. I mean, it's just what we do because
Right.
that is
Absolutely.
a genuine sisterhood.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
And you
we're
can
very
see how it comes back. It goes back, especially if I'm looking at things culturalistically. You look at Africa as an excellent model for that. All my girlfriends' kids call me Aunt Clenora. I'm not Dr. Hudson-Weems. I'm Aunt Clenora. And in Africa, this expression, it takes a child, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mhm.
I've heard people say, "Oh, you read this book?" As I think Clinton, as Clinton, Hillary Clinton says. I said, "No, that's she's not saying. She's quoting an African proverb
Right.
centuries ago. That's how old it is. It takes a village to raise a child, and so the parents respect those others in the community,
Mhm.
whether it's blood or not, as being, and that's why they usually refer to as a relative. I'm Aunt
Mhm.
Clenora. Okay, my next door neighbor when I grew up, and my mother was at her. She had her own. She's a cosmetologist. She had her own business. Once upon a time, she was also owner of a restaurant, and so she was away from home at times and everything. But she always came back to check on us periodically. But my next door neighbor was a stay-at-home mom. Always was. And let me tell you one thing: if we did something and she was getting us straight, we like don't tell them now. We already got it straight. We sorry, we understand because we know. But had she told my mother or father about it, that means we're gonna get it again.
Right.
It's not necessarily that way now, and maybe it should be because it does take a village to raise a child.
It does. And my daughters, they call Tammy Aunt Tammy.
See what I'm
So,
talking about? That's what I'm
right.
talking about.
Mhm.
yes, and it is. It's just that whole familial aspect again of Africana Womanism being such an inclusive framework and um, uniting us instead of dividing or separating. So we're always intrigued and inspired by that. We do want to move into one of the things that we think and are very interested to hear from you because we know your curriculum via Dr. Hudson-Weems is filled with so many accomplishments, awards, honors, presentations, and distinguished professorship opportunities, including grants and fellowships. I mean, it's incredible, and we applaud you for all of your tremendous accomplishments. We
Thank
admire
you.
the
Thank you.
work and all the contributions that you've made. But we wanted to just ask if you had to select just one of the many, many things that you have to highlight, which would that be? Tell us why you selected that as the thing that you think is the one thing that is worth mentioning above the rest.
Well, now one means two because we're talking about two sides of one coin.
Two
We're
That's
sides of
talking,
the coin,
talking
so
about
do
one
you?
that's
two
true.
sides. I can't tell you which one. I told you they were birthed the same semester at the University of
Mm.
Iowa. That's Africana Womanism. When I was invited to join a panel of women on this whole notion of female based paradigms or constructs. And I was the only one that stood alone with Africana Womanism. It was new. You know, I called it then Black Womanism in 1985. A couple years later, I said we need to put the continent of Africa in place, in a sense. So I said Africana Womanism, the extended which takes it beyond the indigenous continental Africans, to African Caribbeans, African Americans, African Europeans, African Canadians, anywhere we are in the world. But at any rate, that was very important, was to develop a paradigm for us, because I was not happy with the other. I kept saying, but I'm not this, but I'm not that. I'm not. So I wouldn't fit anything but something new, because it had not been named and defined before. I don't mind doing it. You get a lot of, people whack you. Why can't you use one that's already legitimate, theoretical, divine, a concept that's already acceptable? I said, you know what? I don't mind creating something new, especially if it's going to reflect the real deal. If it's going to be accurate, it makes more sense. We just have to do that. So I did that. And it was amazing when I was in Boston at 1986, when women were saying, Clenora, I knew there was something wrong with that. I knew that didn't quite fit us, but I said, no, you just settled. You don't supposed to settle for anything but the best. God has made us great. Perfection is what you aim at. Okay, so to define Africana Womanism, to come up with a new, fresh terminology and meaning, an authentic, goes back to my culture, an authentic theoretical paradigm for all women of African descent that is designed and through this whole practice of prioritizing what is most critical for you first. So John of Truth bears that out. Before she can begin to articulate the absurdity of female subjugation, and she does an excellent job doing that. She has to first get beyond the color, the race factor. She has to first clear that up. And ain't I a woman? The class thing came after that. I don't have all these best places to live and all this stuff. Nobody's helping me over ditches and over mud puddles. I'm the co-workhorse with my male companion, but ain't I a woman? Then can we do what it was, right? So, should I just continue to talk?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Should I continue to talk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that was very important. But you know what was also important to me? I was the founding chair of Africana Studies at Delaware State University before I went to Iowa to finish up my PhD. And Atlanta. This is the early 1980s. Okay. And so, if I should continue to talk, even though
you are breaking up some. I don't know if you can hear us or not, but we heard that you were leaving Delaware to go to Iowa, and then it kind of froze.
I think it's still frozen.
Okay.
Let me see if I take it out and add it back.
And it could be connected.
It could be.
Okay.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. I'm used to this. I teach Zoom, so it's Zoom in and Zoom out. I'm still grateful because we still come back, don't we?
That's right.
What I was saying, I think I was talking about, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Africana Womanism. We got that. Okay. But then, like I said, also important, the flip side of the coin is the plight of the Africana male. I had just had a mother, as I was saying, from Atlanta, whose child, about the same age Emmett was, 14, when he was killed. They had a series of Black kids missing and found dead and all that stuff in Atlanta back in the early 1980s. She was the mother. And she was powerful. I couldn't get over that. And I remembered that I was a child when Emmett was lynched. And it had such a horrific impact on me. My father was an inspector for Illinois Central Railroad, And I remember his coming home and discussing it with my mother. And you know how kids are, they eavesdropping, you know. I'm listening in. But when he pulled that picture out, Jet Magazine, it blew me away. To see that face, it blew me away.
Right.
So my thing is, and all I wanted to do was to sleep. I mean, I'd get up and eat, and then I wanted to go back to bed because I was escaping. I found out that's all I was doing, was escaping it. And I had to deal with that. I had just dismissed it, and I had dreams about it periodically, recurring dreams. But hey, what do you do about it? You just keep pushing it under the rug where it had been swept under for 33 years when I came along and said, hey, let's pull this thing out. And so I was the first to establish Emmett Till as the catalyst of the civil rights movement. And it wasn't an easy job at a research one university like Iowa, University of Iowa. In fact, my committee member, and I had a powerful committee member, the chair was a historian, obviously. It was in African-American World Studies. I'm in English, so one of my committee members was the chair of the Department of English at Iowa. The other was an international, well, not international, a national chair. She was a historian, taught history at the University of Iowa, but she was the national chair of American Studies. So, you know, American Studies is everywhere. You couldn't get a PhD in English with the Africana concentration until I did that in 2000. I had to get we all got PhDs in American Studies. That includes me and Wilfred Samuels and Skip Gates, Henry Louis Gates at Harvard, and just all of us. That's what we did, you know. So that's why I was so insistent about doing that before I left the academy. But at any rate, so my English professor, the chair, said, Clenora, well, first of all, the chair of my committee said, well, Clenora, to change the catalyst of the civil rights movement from Rosa Parks to Emmett Till is virtually impossible. I said, no, it's not. It has to be done. He said, but all historians have agreed that the beginning of the civil rights movement was Rosa Parks, December 1st, 1955. I said, that was 3 months and 3 days after Emmett Till was lynched, after it became a cause célèbre. People all over the world was talking about it. After all of that, then comes this. Which came first? It set the stage for the Montgomery bus boycott. We must give this boy his proper place in the historic account of the chronology of the civil rights movement. Emmett Till first. He's a child of the movement. I don't have a problem with the mother of the movement, Rosa Parks. Nor do I have a problem with Dr. Martin Luther King as the father of the movement. I have a problem when you can't bring the child in. That's the thing that moved the people. They couldn't, I mean, you can deal with anything else, but if you can't protect your child, it's time to die. Basically, that's it. Because you have no way of passing it on for the new generations to come. It has to be done. And so I said, I cannot ignore this passion in me to speak truth. They said, well, why don't you just say that Emmett was a significant factor in the rise of the civil rights movement then? That'll work. What? I said, no, that won't work. Because he was far more than, and I mimicked them, a very significant factor in the rise of the civil rights movement. It was the impetus. They said, well, what happens if you can't defend a dissertation? I said, simple. I don't get a PhD, and I'm willing to take that chance. Do you understand? I took a chance of not earning a PhD to do a dissertation on TLS catalyst. People don't understand that wasn't easy. And it took about almost a decade and a half before people started, okay, makes sense, right? I knew it made sense. It's just I had to keep saying it over and over again. People didn't want to touch it. Number one is because of the fact that there's a reason for it to have been swept under the rug in the first place.
Right.
It wasn't a palatable, peaceful symbol of movement. You see, and certain people didn't want to say that the movement, the inception of the movement, was something as ugly as the bloated face of Emmett Till. I mean, who wants to remember that? God, it was so ugly. Let's do something that's more palatable.
Right.
Rosa Parks, we could sit down at a dinner table and talk about that. She was tired. She wasn't giving it up. And even she later on, much later on, admitted that she thought about Emmett and couldn't go back.
Wow.
But I'm saying that we got to deal with truth. Bottom line, Emmett was the true catalyst of the civil rights movement. He was a child of the movement. Rosa Parks, the mother of the movement, King, the father of the movement. It's a trilogy, so to speak. I like that. 3 is good. I like 3. Okay. So you have the man, woman, and child together. The movement. Can you be in it better than that? And that's the whole theory of Africana Womanism. We're in it together. You know, the poem that I did, I was so pleased when I looked at TV and everybody was saying when the pandemic first hit out, we're all in it together. That's that came from the first line of the first stanza, and I had 4 stanzas in my poem, Africana Womanism. I got your back, boo.
Why don't you close us out with it? Do your poem for us
right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then you hear in the first line exactly what I'm saying. Okay. Don't you know by now, girl, we are all in it together. This is in 2009. I was en route to the second Africana Womanism National Symposium in Pittsburgh. Don't you know by now, girl, we're all in it together. Family centrality. That's it. We're going nowhere without the other. That means the men, the women, and the children too. Truly collectively working, I got your back, boo. Racism means the violation of our constitutional rights, which can create ongoing legal and even physical fights. This first priority for humankind is doing what it must do. Echoing our First Lady Michelle, I got your back, boo. But you know it was during that time, right? Classism is the hoarding of financial privileges we must all have now in pursuit of happiness. Without a piece of the financial pie, we're doomed to have a coup. Remember, each must protect the other. I got your back, boo. Sexism, the final abominable sin of female subjugation, a battle we must wage right now to restore our family relations. All forms of sin inevitably fall under one of these 3 offenses. Africana Womanism, I got your back, boo, corrects our common senses. I mean, that's important. And you know what? I won't read it to you now, but I got another poem that I just wrote less than a month ago. The flip side of the coin, now highlighting the male. I want my boo back. Africana Womanism, I want my boo back.
Wow.
What's wrong with that? Give me my boo back. Okay.
I love it.
I'll read that to you later day, but you know, it's all about it. Of staying together, loving each other. We're not anti-male. We can't afford to be. My dad is a male, in case you didn't know. My brothers are a significant other, brothers, cousins, you know, friends, colleagues, you know. Men are not just blatantly just horrible. I mean, when they do something that's bad, you correct it. You say, hey, do you know what this does? Do you know the impact of this on me and others like me? If you're going to exclude the male, all you're going to be doing is allowing it to continue. He'll never see the wrong in what he's doing. He'll forever be, like they said, a male chauvinist pig. Well, what do you expect if you're never going to let him be a part of the dialogue to show him how ludicrous it is? You know, and just because you decide that you're going to attack that and say, no, we're not going to have it. Okay, that's fine. But if that's all you're going to do and not allow it to be corrected, then you're wasting your time. We have to correct those abominable things so that we can live in harmony. In harmony together. That's it. It's all about the family.
I love that, and I love that about the whole framework, because you're right. We do have to include the entire family, and it is so fitting for our culture. And one of the things that us learning about Africana Womanism, you have inspired us to just like, you know, Frederick Douglass's quote about it's easier to build strong children than to fix broken men. You know, we have to include our children. So Tammy and I have, as you know, because you've been a part of this, founded the Knowledge Academy for Girls. And we thought it would be appropriate with you being here because you've inspired it to announce it tonight that this is our unveiling of our new nonprofit. It is a framework that we're going to outline the sisterhood paradigms that promote self-awareness, leadership development, and unity, because we want girls to unite, just like Africana Womanism talks about, and form those genuine sisterhoods, to basically attempt to change how Black girls and women treat, support, and interact with one another. So your work has inspired that. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy. Thank you.
And just to give everyone some background, a lot of times in education, we focus on African-American males and making sure that we have things in place for them. But like you said, there's two sides to the coin, and we want the Knowledge Academy for Girls to also be able to focus on our young ladies. This was from an article on some research about Black girls and adultification bias. And it said that the center's original 2017 study, Girlhood Interrupted, the erasure of Black girls' childhood, applied a statistical analysis to a national study about adults and their attitudes toward Black girls. It found that adults believe Black girls between the ages of 5 and 19 need less nurturing, protection, support, and comfort than white girls of the same age, and that Black girls are more independent, know more about adult topics, and know more about sex than white girls. So what that does is it provides harsher treatment and higher standards for Black girls in schools. Negative stereotypes of Black women as angry, aggressive, and hypersexualized are projected onto Black girls. Adults attempt to change Black girls' behavior to be more passive, and adultification bias can lead educators and other authorities to treat Black girls in developmentally inappropriate ways. So one of the things that we hope to do with the Knowledge Academy for Girls is to bring awareness to this, but also teach young ladies how your framework basically will show them how to develop those genuine sisterhoods, because a lot of times we don't focus on that. We don't focus on showing our young ladies how to do that, and we have to teach them. That's cultural as well, raising up, the next generation and teaching them the way that they should go.
Mothering and nurturing. That's African Womanism.
We're going to do that, Dr. Hudson-Weems, because we do have people on here who seem very interested in Africana Womanism and what we are sharing tonight. I'm going to just quickly go through what those elements of Africana Womanism are so that people will know what they are. And we've talked about a few today already, but self-namer, self-definer, family-centered, genuine in sisterhood, strong, in concert with male in the liberation struggle, whole, authentic, flexible role player, recognized, spiritual, respected, male compatible, respectful of elders, mothering, nurturing, and adaptable. That's who we are.
Did you say spiritual?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Yeah, and that's so beautiful. We have to do that. But see what's happening. I love what you just talked about, the stereotypes,
Yes.
Dr. Houston.
Yes.
That's unfortunate. Our girls are expected to be, but what's happening is that we're having some of our sisters out here who are promoting that by example. They are supposed to be these strong. When I say strong for African Womanism, let me just reiterate what I've said since the 80s. Mental, psychological strength far exceeds physical strength. I'm not interested in muscles because I had the baby, okay? We have babies, okay? Save it for that. That's a lot, okay? I tell my students, a girl could be sitting, young lady sitting right next to the door, and I realize we're running out of seats. I'm not going to ask her, kind of sweetheart, run out there and get us another extra seat. I look at the guy way over there by the window and say, honey, young man, come over here. Go over and get us a couple of seats out there in the hallway. You know, flex your muscles. Men like to do it anyway. You know what I mean? Let men do what they like to do, which is natural. And don't apologize for being a woman who likes to do those things that we do. I was raised as a young lady enjoying the family and the home, and I like cooking. I love it. I mean, I'm not necessarily trapped into it where, what's for dinner? Do you smell it? If you don't smell it, there must not be dinner ready. So the question is what? Where do you want to go, or what do you want to do for dinner? You know, we're not trapped in any roles, but we appreciate traditional roles. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't go out there and mow the lawn and clear the sidewalk or the garage driveway when it comes to snow and ice. No, I'm not doing that. I don't even empty the garbage except when he's out of town. And I don't want the house to smell. I switch roles. That's flexible role player, right? I can empty the garbage. But that's not something I do all the time. I love raking the leaves out there for the first 5 minutes at most, and then it gets muggy. And so goodbye. You finish. I love doing things at domestic things. That's not feeble-minded chores for 8-year-olds, as one lady said. And I quoted her in the first chapter. I think it was the third chapter of the first book, the classic now. Okay, I'm simply saying that we don't have problems with traditional roles. One is not any less important than the other. And you're certainly not saying that puts us down there. When you go back to African antiquity, not only were women queens then, but they were pharaohs as well. And we've always been the center. We love that because we're the mothers and the nurturers. And we help our male partners, companions also be better, just like they help us to be better. We help each other. There's nothing wrong with that. I just had to say that, that's sorry for that. But it's important that we realize that it takes two to tango and we're in it together. That's all.
Well, we do appreciate it. And we appreciate the wisdom and all of your many, many so significant contributions, not just to your work with Africana Womanism, but also with your establishing Emmett Till as catalyst.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do. And it's been amazing to talk with you. We are so way over.
I just want to make one statement.
We kept you too long.
One statement. Iowa said, what happens if you can't defend a dissertation since you won't do it? You won't change it. I said, it's simple. I don't get a PhD. I'm willing to take that chance. We have to take a chance in life for each other. I took a chance. No PhD for truth. We have to do that.
And we're so glad you did, because this is so important, and it's so important for other women to learn about it. That's why we wanted to honor you by having you on, to make people aware, and also by making sure that our young ladies also are aware as well. We're going to put in the comments the books that you can purchase by Dr. Clenora Hudson-Weems that outlines her framework. Tammy, you have the newest update, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have the paradigms.
Okay.
And we also could list the titles of the Africana Womanism, certainly, but we could list the other titles. Okay. Because the work with those books from Emmett Till are also excellent for folks who want to understand that timeline and, like she said, the chronology of that actual event. And it's so interesting to read.
We so thank you, Dr. Clenora Hudson-Weems, for being with us. And
thank you.
We just are so inspired by your work, inspired by you, and just thank you for everything that you have done. You are truly a legend, and we applaud you for your work.
Yes, we do. And I thank the Lord for you, because you've given me a framework to get done. So I really appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you to everyone that tuned in. I'm going to put up this last comment by Joyce Cooper. She's grateful, ladies, for bringing us the episode, Empowering, Uplifting to Begin Women's History Month. And also my Aunt Virginia, thank you for joining, and thank you all for joining us. We will share the feed of Reading with Miss McGriff if you would like to get your little ones together for story time. But at this time, we are thanking all of you all for joining us. And thank you again, Dr. Hudson-Weems. We're going to end the broadcast with our what I should have played at the beginning, which is the promo, because I forgot, but I'll play it now. But thank you all for joining us, and have a great, great
and
evening.
again, happy Women's History Month, guys.
Thank you.
Join Sheka and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go!
The collaborative.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The collaborative.
What's that time?
On Facebook Tuesday at 7.
The collaborative. Who we have? Come on.
We have our leaders. We have our teachers and our parents. We have our authors. Story time at the end. Solving problems in our education system. Phenomenal women.
Join them on Facebook.
On Facebook Tuesday at 7. The collaborative.
It's that time. You're with Sheka and Tammy.
The collaborative.
Phenomenal ladies. It's educational. Here on the Facebook.